Scars are pretty much part of the job when you're a top-tier player such as LeBron James. And even though the player tries his best to take very good care of himself, he's still got some scars that have led his fans to ask different questions. Well, you're in luck because in today's video, we'll be talking about these scars and the history behind them. So let's get started. First, let's look at the king and his injuries. Out of many basketball players, LeBron is definitely one who has remained fit throughout his career. We've hardly seen him miss a game due to injury, so naturally, the few injuries he has have led to many questions. In an interview with GQ magazine, James went into the history of these scars. The interviewer specifically mentioned 2 injuries on the star's head. Turns out he got one after being elbowed during practice. And as for the other one, well, you might remember the time when James unfortunately crashed into a camera. Yeah, well, it's the aftermath of that. Following up, let's take a closer look at these injuries. First up, we've got the elbowing incident. To be very honest, we've always thought that getting injured during a practice session was extremely unfortunate. You don't get to make a show of it, which is definitely terrible, but we can't imagine LeBron wanting to do something like that. Now let's get back to the elbowing injury. It's important to note that he was with the Cleveland Cavaliers when this interview took place. When asked how he managed to get the scar, LeBron elaborated that he got elbowed during a practice session in Miami. Yikes! We can't even imagine how much it would have hurt. Being the true gentleman that he is, the king refused to give any names, but he did mention that it was actually someone on his own team. Well, we're sure that they've never heard the end of it from the rest of the team, and of course the management. If you end up injuring LeBron James, you're bound to face some serious consequences. The basketball player himself said that his teammate was actually quite nervous after the incident. Well, that's a given. Further details regarding this incident were never shared by the player or his team at that time, but we can imagine that it couldn't have been an easy situation. James further revealed that he'd actually received 16 stitches across the back of his head. Wow, just the thought of that is making us feel queasy. But from the way he was talking about it, we can safely assume that the NBA star didn't hold a grudge against that teammate. In fact, he was even laughing a bit when he recalled this incident. Phew! We hope that things between the two players get better and that the mystery player isn't out there attacking fellow basketballers with his elbows. Moving on, let's take a look at his other scar. This particular injury was actually pretty public. In fact, there are still some clips of it going around on the internet. The second scar on the star's head came in the 4th game of the 2015 NBA Finals, when the Cleveland Cavaliers were up against the Golden State Warriors. The poor guy slipped out of the court and crashed straight into the camera. This incident took place in the second quarter of the game, when James made his way to the basket but was aggressively blocked by Andrew Bogut, which caused the king to ram straight into a cameraman. The poor man tried to stabilize himself for a full 6 seconds, but wasn't able to hold on to anything. Later, it was announced that he was bleeding from the head after the crash. Thankfully, though, they were able to stop bleeding before it was too late, and being the true king that he is, LeBron stayed in the game to take the free throws. Well, if anyone's not sure why the star is considered to be the best player of all time, then just tell them about this incident. We're sure they'll be changing their mind in no time. James even ended up making one of the free throws he got. Honestly, our respect for him keeps on skyrocketing. If we were in his place, then the NBA wouldn't have heard from us in several business days. What's even more interesting is the fact that James didn't even receive stitches after halftime, but he did have his wound glued together. Yes, they actually used glue to hold his head together. Following up, let's see what James had to say about this incident. The player recalled that this was the first game he played against the team that season, and well, it certainly was memorable, don't you think? We're very glad that the NBA legend was able to walk away from that incident without any major injury. 3 years after the incident, the king revealed that they were actually going to staple his head together. Yikes, that sounds even more painful. And it's not surprising that LeBron thought so too. He conveyed his concerns to his management in some rather colorful language, saying, "Don't effing staple my head." Honestly, we want to know who suggested that in the first place. Why would someone even say yes to that? And if staples really do work, then every crazy kid in our school was basically a medic. But here's something the king and his team didn't let on during that time. The wound on his head didn't heal right. When he was asked for the reason behind this, James said that it was because he didn't like talking about injuries. Well, we get it. Injuries might make someone feel weak, but when it's something this serious, then talking about it becomes very important. Thankfully, though, James' performance wasn't really affected by this literal run-in. He still dominates the courts like no other player in the NBA. Up next, why do they not talk about injuries? James. Now, you might have seen a pattern emerge over here. No details of the elbow incident were revealed, and after crashing into a camera, the player went back to playing as if this wasn't anything new to him. We get it, he's got a considerable tolerance level, but everyone has a limit, so why is James so adamant about hiding his injuries? Interestingly, the man has only 2 visible scars that we know of, and both of them are on his head. Why don't we hear about any other injuries? Well, seems like it's all part of a strategy. You see, if James remains unhurt throughout many games, his opponents will assume that he's extremely strong and skilled at avoiding unfortunate incidents. This would add to his intimidation factor, so the reason why they kept the head injury a secret was to protect LeBron from appearing weak, which would have given his opponents a golden chance to come at him with full force. Perhaps this is the reason why the player has kept a particular image of himself alive in the media, where he's said to be one of the most consistent and healthy players in the league. And well, it's not only a well-put reputation, James has also been able to condition his body so that he's always ready to face the worst of situations. Now that's definitely a man of many talents. Moving on, does James have any other injuries? Okay, this one isn't really an injury, but it's definitely something due to basketball. We're not sure if you've ever Googled LeBron James's feet. There really can't be any scenario where you might have to do that unless you're making a sculpture of him or something. But we had to do that, strictly for research purposes only, and the results really had us scratching our heads. How is he not in constant pain? The poor guy's toes are literally piled up on top of each other, and to be honest, it looks pretty hurtful. This weird set can only be attributed to the fact that the star constantly has to wear some really cozy shoes. Well, let's hope they're able to create shoes that allow the feet of NBA players to breathe, because this is actually a pretty recurrent problem for some of the players. Until then, the player must show them around as a badge of honor, since they tell a pretty amazing tale of his hard work and strength. Finally, will these injuries hold him back? Well, it's safe to say that James has proved the fact that he's not letting anything slow him down. Even though the player is 37 years old, retirement is really not on his mind. In fact, he wants to wait around for a bit so that he can play a match against his son, Bronny James. Apart from this, the King has proved that he's got the ability to remain the greatest for more than a decade, besides all the wear and tear he's received during his games. Well, they don't call him the King for no reason. That's a wrap for this video, folks. What do you think of LeBron James's scars and the stories behind them? Do you think there's any chance of him slowing down in the near future? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more awesome videos like this. See you in the next one with the latest update.
And James holding his left leg. And obviously,
saw the foul. LeBron
he twisted his ankle
and hurt.
Twisted his
high and hammer it down.
And he's down.
And he is down.
There's the timeout. The old basketball injury that turned